Getting ready for day 2 of the WPT main, and it is boring out here. Why do I have to park so far away? Let's go. Seems like I have a pretty good day 2 draw, because, you know, Rainer Kempe's not at my table. So, we're gonna come in with quite a few big blinds, bagged 150 bigs, 226K, coming back to 1,000, 1,500 with a 1,500 big blind ante. So pretty stoked, but trying to keep the expectations level because, you know, there's 203 players left. I'm in the top 15, but probably only 60 or 70 will pay. So it's, you know, it's still a long way to go. We're basically playing a brand new tournament today. The only plus side is I am way above average. I'll be chip leader at my table by 50 big blinds or more. Let's get going. Come on, focus. Focus. Hey, bring it back here. There we go. So, running my patented just barely on time, so not much else to say here. Parked on the top floor, still raining pretty hard. Might not have been the best idea, but let's go anyway. So coming into day 2, we had a pretty wild day 2 table draw. I had Jeremy Osmus on my table, who final table the main event a couple years back. Had a couple other people who were notables for sure, especially locally. And then on my first table change, which happened very quickly, I ended up with Brian Piccioli, who was also a main event final tablist recently, and a couple other people whose names are escaping me. If I think of it later, I'll put them up here on the screen. But some people who are really notables on the WPT circuit. So we're coming in, definitely a tougher draw than on day 1. Definitely expecting the level of competition to be much fiercer, and just honestly pretty excited to be here. So we come in with 200K, blinds are at 1K, 1.5K with a 1.5K big blind ante, one of those kind of weird big blind ante situations. Under the gun +1, open jams 22K. Folds around to me and I call with pocket 10s on the button. I don't think at this jam size we have to really protect. I don't think we need to isolate, so we just call here. Brian Piccioli's in the big blind and flats with about 250K behind. The flop comes queen 9-7 rainbow. Brian Piccioli checks, and I felt like we probably had to bet here just to protect against like ace king type hands. I definitely wouldn't be excited to see him call here. I don't know if a bet is really proper here or not, but I choose to bet 17K, and he folds ace king face up. Under the gun +1 has deuces, and we hold when it comes a 9 of spades on the turn and a brick on the river. So nice little chip up there. It was kind of funny in the moment because Brian Piccioli is very conversational at the table. We were chatting, and Alex Keating was also on my right. We're gonna play a hand against him next. So now at 250K, blinds at 1K, 2K with a 2K big blind ante. Early position, who is Alex Keating in this hand, opens to 5K. I'm next to act in middle position with pocket kings, and I make it 16K. The small blind, who's a competent pro, I don't know his name, makes it 43K, and Alex Keating jams 96K. It's pretty awkward. The small blind either has me covered or is very, very close. It's going to be a pretty rough spot here. When we get cold 4-bet by the small blind, and when the openers are early position and the 3-better, which is myself here, is in middle position, the small blind cold 4-bet is just not going to be super wide. It's just not going to be that many weak hands, if any. His value range might be as tight as queens plus and ace king suited. We block ace king, and when Alex Keating jams, he knows all this too, so his range similarly can't really be that wide. Maybe his whole range is queens plus and ace king suited. So looking at this spot, it just kind of sucks. I mean, I felt like it would be really awkward to fold. I hated folding as an option. I hated calling as an option because it's such a small 5-bet jam over the size of the 4-bet that, we're going to get rejammed on sometimes by the small blind. And even if we don't get rejammed on by him calling and then having to play this like super bloated pot was going to be super awkward. So in the end, I just rejammed. I thought this was probably the best way to play the hand. And I think this is definitely true because if Alex Keating ever has queens, what actually happened was pretty good because the small blind folded the other pair of kings face up. Now, when he does this, that means his whole range if we jam is aces. So yes, we technically want him to call it off with queens, but I don't think he ever is. So if we're getting him to fold kings when we have kings, that's pretty good. But unfortunately, Alex Keating has aces. So if he never has queens in this spot and it's only ever aces for both of them, obviously this isn't good for us. It's also not good for us when he has aces and we've seen the last kings go face up into the muck because we can't really hit a whole lot here. The flop comes 8-8-4. We're, I think, drawing dead on the flop because we can't hit a king, we can't run her a straight or anything, and can't run her a flush. So the turn 8 of clubs is now going to seal the deal for sure. The river is an irrelevant brick, and we ship over pretty much 40% of our stack to our right to Alex Keating. So not an ideal way to come into day 2. Very different from my day 1 so far, but still very healthy. It's very deceptive when you come in so deep in these things. Losing 40% of your stack when you had 120, 150 bigs to start the day, you just can't get too hung up on it. You got to just kind of push ahead. So this next hand, I'm at a new table, new set of players, definitely not as tough as the last table, so I was pretty happy about that. I've got 180k in my stack at the same blind level, and I open the cutoff with deuces to 5k. The button is an unknown and calls, and the big blind, who's Maria Ho, also calls. The flop comes 7-6 deuce, so we flat bottom set on a pretty wet board, pretty pumped about it. When it checks to me, I c-bet 11k, and the button calls. He's a complete unknown, so this is looking like a pretty good situation for us. The turn is a king of diamonds. I bet 22k, and he's only got about 51k himself, so I kind of thought that my sizing could have been a little smaller, could have been maybe a check here sometimes, but I don't really hate it. So I bet 22k, and with 51k, he jams. I have a pretty easy decision here. There's a ton of stuff that he could go in with that is worse. Most notably would probably be like king X of spades, which would be a flush draw on the flop and then picks up top pair. Unfortunately, when I call, he turns over pocket sixes and we are drawing to just one out. And the river 4 of hearts is not going to do it. We are coolered here once again in another fairly big pot relative to our stack. We lose another roughly 40% of our stack here, chipping down quite a bit. And in this next hand, we've got about 100k, 1500, 2500 blinds with a 2500 big blind ante. We open queens under the gun at a new table to 6500. Competent pro jam 61k in the big blind, and even though this is a pretty big jam, it's well over 20 bigs. Obviously we have queens, we're never folding. We're going to snap call here. This is at a new table again, by the way, which has several very competent players at it. This is one of them, so I don't think he's going to be super tight in this spot. He's got plenty of hands that he's going to jam that he knows he has fold equity with. He has got one of those hands this time. It is ace 10, so we're in amazing shape here to stack him and add quite a big chunk to our stack ourselves. The flop comes king, jack, deuce. Deuce on the turn looks good for us, but the ace on the river does not. Max pain here. We're in really good shape, and he just gets lucky on us, and there's not really anything we can do. A lot of these hands just totally play themselves, and there's nothing we can do to change it, but it's really frustrating. It's really frustrating coming in with 150 bigs on to start the day and then just losing basically every hand that we play, most of them being completely unavoidable, completely standard if you want to think about it that way. But really low probability cooler type hands, and getting like 2 or 3 of them followed by losing queens and ace 10. So we fold for a couple of orbits, can't really get anything going. We've just got a jammable stack now with blinds at 1500, 3K, with a 3K big blind ante. I've got 36K, and in the low jack with king jack offsuit, this is right around the borderline. This is right around the hands where I would consider just folding. But I decided to jam it. People have been giving a fair bit of respect to jams, to the point where I felt like we might have a little more fold equity than you'd normally expect. So I do decide to go all in with my 36K, and Joe McKeon on the button makes the call with pocket nines. So all in for a flip here, not much to talk about. Just gonna kind of have to take this very thin spot and hope to win. The flop comes out ace 7 deuce, so very little help, but we do have some backdoor going on. We can hit backdoor Broadway. The turn keeps this hope alive with the 10 of diamonds, but the river 4 of hearts is gonna seal the deal, and we get knocked out of the tournament. It was a sort of crazy turnaround of events. I think that this day one really shows how expectations have to equal reality when you're playing poker.
Route. I know I ran like God on day one, I know, but I think I played perfectly on day two. So we bust about, I don't know, 50 spots for the money. Doesn't even, like, that's still hours away. It's not like we got close. Suffice it to say, I'm frustrated. Suffice it to say, I am. But it is what it is, you know? I signed up for this bullshit, and I am gonna keep showing up. I am gonna keep bagging top 5% on day two, and then trying to make something happen on day two. You know, it's like the last 3 day twos I've made have been basically exactly like this, which is kind of, it feels crazy.
But when you look at the hands that were played, there's just not really anything to be done. Sometimes that's going to happen, and this is tournament poker. That's just what tournament poker is. If any of you guys have watched me stream on Twitch, by the way, you should watch me stream on Twitch. If any of you have watched those, you see that a lot of times, even when you're pretty deep into tournaments, what really turns into an amazing finish or a rough defeat is the cards. And sometimes these things are just unavoidable. So coming into day two with really high expectations, while it makes sense that I expect I'm going to do well when I have 150 bigs, it doesn't mean that I'm impervious to variance. It doesn't mean that I'm always going to have an amazing finish. It doesn't mean I'm always going to make the money. It's not crazy. It's just poker. So it was definitely devastating in the moment. It was pretty frustrating. I had expectations set too high, and I had sort of this mentality of like, this is kind of my tournament. This is my time, right? So it was very humbling. It was some run bad at some bad moments, and I don't feel I could have really played many, if any, of the situations differently at all. So on the one hand, it's pretty annoying, but on the other hand, it's also pretty gratifying just to think like, you know, I think I did pretty much everything right. And sometimes that's all you can do, and it's not going to be enough. But sometimes you are going to do everything right, and everything's going to go right, and you're just going to win a tournament. So the key is to just keep giving yourself shots at it, keep getting opportunities, and ultimately plan to come back stronger in the next big event. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, share this video with a friend, and leave me a comment letting me know what you thought. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate all of you, and don't forget to follow me streaming on Twitch. I'm going to be streaming most Sundays and hoping to add a weekday in there too. So I hope you guys take care, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.